Hello, I thought I'd record a video demonstration for our exercise 5 Sinfonia program in InDesign. So I'm going to go in there and download some files. There's a little thing that says files for students. We want to download that so we can use the fonts, and there's a PDF and some other things that'll help us with this exercise. So I'm going to download that. I'm bringing it over to my assignment 5 folder, which I have already here. So I would copy this over here, and then to unzip it, just simply double click. Inside the files for students folder, there is a fonts folder, and you'll want to load these fonts by double clicking on them and then clicking install font. Mine, it may already be installed, but I'm going to go ahead and make sure we're good before we move on. Now there is one font that is not here that I use. It's called Adorn Commander, and it is an Adobe Typekit font, and that font in Adobe Typekit cannot be copied, so that's why it didn't come over when I packaged my document. We can use a different font for that. If you can't get it, you can use Edwardian script. That's Ewardian, Edwardian script, or even Kunstler script, but some sort of comparable script font. Also, we have an images folder. There's a music staff, a treble clef logo, and a violin and bow that we're going to place into InDesign. And then there is a JPEG also that shows what this looks like when it should, what it should look like when it's finished. And then finally, a Microsoft Word document. Now, I did want you guys to have Microsoft Word loaded prior to this. So if you haven't done that yet, you will want to get back to the course materials here. You'll want to go to the module 5, I believe. Let's see here. And it does have instructions on how to access Microsoft Word and how to upload it to your computer. So that might have been actually in module 4 because I was trying to prepare you guys for the things here. And it might actually be in the topics area. So this item said topics. So here, goodness, guys, I'm getting a little lost already. That's pretty crazy. Just coming back from surgery. So that's part of the problem. Maybe it's in week 4. Wow. Okay. So we need to get you guys with Word. So I'll talk about that here in a moment. I do have another course where I have linked it up, so I'll have to make sure it's here. I'm going to go to the announcements, make sure there's no things here. Okay, so here it is. Access to Adobe Microsoft Word. That's included with the course. So there are links on how to get to that. So you want to make sure you have Microsoft Word loaded prior to starting this exercise, because we're going to do some things in Word. Now, what are we doing in Word? Now, on a Mac, it looks a little bit different than on a PC. I'm going to try and see if I can run a PC here. I've got one plugged in. And excuse me. With a PC, there's windows that are in different positions than they are on Mac. So this gets a little tough for folks if we're, because I'm on a Mac and you guys are on PC. On a Mac, what we want to do initially is we want to strip all the formatting out of this Word document. So this is the Word document that came with the student files for students for this exercise 5. It says the Sinfonia.docx. And you'll want to click on the styles pane. Now, on a PC, I believe the styles pane has a little drop-down menu, and Mac does too, but it's in a slightly different location. But you'll want to be on the home tab when you do this, and you want your styles pane up. And you can, on a PC, I think there's a little flyout menu that allows you to rip it, have it stationary. So on the Mac, it's here where it says styles pane, and it pops out this way. On the PC, again, I believe it's a drop-down menu near all of these different styles. Now, the first order of business, when we get a Microsoft Word document from a client, they oftentimes make it look really nice and do some of the design work for us. And unfortunately, that doesn't work out very well for us. We have to clear the formatting from it and get rid of all the extra spacing that they put in and clean it up. So the first thing I'll do is there's a backwards P, which stands for paragraph formatting, or hide paragraph symbols and spaces and tabs. It's their invisible characters. So you do want that backwards P selected so you can see all of the different little blue non-printable characters. They call them hidden characters. Some people call them invisible characters. I'm going to zoom in so we can see a little bit better. Basically, if there's a backwards P at the end of a statement or sentence, it means that the return key has been hit and that's the end of paragraph. Those are fine. But as I'm looking at something that this client has provided me, I will see things like, well, there's an extra space right there, so I need to delete that. So I'll put my cursor into the area that I need to delete and take that out. But if there's backwards P's at the ends of statements, I don't need to delete those. Now, anytime I see a backwards P out by itself, or any things that's ... that's where the space bar has been hit, all those dots, I want to highlight those and delete those. So again, I may have to get this guy here and delete him. There was a line in there also that needed deleted. Now, unfortunately, the client was trying to help us, but in doing so, they created some problems. So I have to go in and strip out any of the extra spaces, and any time the tab key has been hit too many times. It only needs to be hit one time. So I see multiple tabs, which are these arrows. So I'm going to put my cursor before the G in GF Handel and delete, and there's one little tab in there I'm going to leave. Same thing with the other line down below it. I'm going to delete all of the arrows or tabs and only have one. Later, we'll go into InDesign and set a tab. Now, I will also delete any extra spaces and tabs in the rest of the piece. And like this doesn't need to have a space, I'll delete that. So you'll see when you get something from a client, there's a lot of stuff they put in there to make it look pretty, but will also give us problems in InDesign. Get rid of this space and those dots, get rid of this space, or excuse me, and those hashes, in dashes basically. So we're cleaning this thing up and getting it ready to bring into InDesign. Now, my experience has been that on average, I spend about 8 minutes per page cleaning up Word documents from clients. And if I can get it with a client beforehand and talk to them about how many Word or how many pages of Word documents they have as far as copy goes, I will get that information, and I will get that'll be an estimate. I'll estimate 8 minutes a page on cleaning it up. It's part of actually something I do, and you should charge for it. If I had 10 documents, that's 8, or 10 pages, that's 80 minutes. That's over an hour. That's like an hour and 20 minutes. You want to get paid for that. So you want to be prepared to understand that you will have to clean up documents. Now, once I get all of the extra spaces and arrows deleted, I'm just looking through to make sure everything is good. I'm going to select all of the text, which is Command or Control A. And I'm going to go to the styles pane. I'm going to click on clear formatting. Now, in the clearing of the formatting, it did add extra space between the paragraphs. So I'll try to strip that out. When Microsoft Word comes into InDesign, it doesn't always behave really nicely. So even though I'm taking the spacing out, I'm not guaranteed it's going to stay out. So I'm going to remove space after paragraph using this drop-down menu here. It's the line and paragraph spacing, and take that out. And hopefully that will be enough to clean that up. Again, when I bring it into InDesign, we may have other issues. Once I do all the clearing of all the formatting and get rid of all the extra spaces that were put in, all the extra returns, all the extra tabs, I will then save this as a different name. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I will call this Sinfonia. And I usually call it unformatted or stripped formatted, something that lets me know that this is the one that I have messed with. I always leave the original from the client intact. Now, when I go to InDesign, and by the way, if you are having problems with Word, let me know and I'll just copy and paste this into an email message and get you this text that's not formatted. Okay. We're going to go into InDesign. I do not copy and paste from Word to InDesign. It's a very bad habit to get into. The reason why is because if you are working in an office where you have more than one person, maybe you have a copywriter, an editor, plus some graphics folks, they have third-party software that if they make a change to the Word document, when you open InDesign, it'll let you know, hey, some changes have been made, and it'll link back up to that. If you copy and paste from Word to InDesign, it will not link up. And then those typos and editorial mishaps end up the responsibility of the designer, and we don't want that. Now, this is an already finished piece here. And so I do have that to reference, but this is what it should look like when we're done. And I'm going to create a new document. This is according to the instructions. Let's just go to those instructions. I keep going to Safari, excuse me. According to the instructions, and I'll get into that assignment, which is assignment 5. It needs to be a letter half sized document. Letter half means half of an 8.5 by 11. So 8.5 by 11 is letter. Letter half would be half of that. So it'd be 8.5 by 5.5. We here's the instructions for setting up the file for when we create a new file. So we want 1/2 inch margins, 1/8 inch bleed, 1 column layout, turn facing pages off, and a letter half. So let's walk you through that. Oh, I don't really want to do that right now. So let's create a new file. So we go File, New Document. Now, if this is one of your first times working in InDesign, they do have some presets here. If you click on Print, this would be kind of like a printed piece. So we would, if you're at the show, you would actually put your hands on this. You can see that you have letter, legal, tabloid, and letter half. So this is the one we're going to use. Now, if you're not familiar with picas, which most probably wouldn't be unless you had typography class, there are 6 picas in an inch. And so this can be confusing because the math doesn't seem clear. So if you want to click on picas and go to inches, that's fine. You'll see that it's 5.5 wide by 8.5 tall. The orientation is portrait, and I'm going to uncheck facing pages. There is 1 column here. And if you don't see the margins or the bleed, you can click on the arrows, and the margins are 1/2 inch as default. So we're all good. And the bleed and slug, just for the bleed, you want 0.125 inches. Okay. And when you hit the tab key, it'll automatically fill in the rest of them, assuming that the chain is connected and not broken. Don't worry about the slug. That's not information that's necessary for this. So once we have all of the setup correct, letter half, which is 5.5 by 8.5, orientation tall, portrait rather, facing pages turned off, columns 1, margins 1/2 inch, hit create. You can also hit preview just to see if it looks like this. I like to have my rulers up so I can see that it's 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So I'm going to hit create. If your rulers aren't up, hit Control or Command R and you'll see that. You'll also see a red line that goes around the page. That's the bleed. If we were to have any images or any sort of decorative elements that were to go to the edge of the page, and the edge of the page is where the white ends. But if we had a picture going past that or going to the edge of that, it would be called a bleed, and we pull the bleed to the 1/8 inch mark, which is the red. The pink and purple lines are the margins. So there's a 1/2 inch from those to the edge of the page. A lot of students mistakenly in the beginning think that these pink and purple lines are the edge of the page. They are not. They're just kind of a safety margin so that body copy doesn't end up getting too close to the edge of the page. Okay, so there's a little bit about that. Now, another thing I want to remind you guys of is if you are in Essentials, you will not have all the tools that we will need to do this assignment readily available. So what you'll want to do is switch from Essentials to Essentials Classic in the work preview. Now, if you can't find it up in the near the upper right-hand corner, you can also find it in Window and Workspace and Essentials Classic. So that's what we want to do, is make sure we're in Essentials Classic. Now we're ready to place text. We're not going to go to in Word and copy and paste. That is, again, not a good habit. Instead, we're going to go to File and Place, kind of like when we went to Illustrator, we placed images. So File and Place. Now we need to go find the document that that you saved and stripped out the formatting. So you can see it remembers which folder I went to, but I've got things organized pretty well. Fall class, Viz 115, assignment 5, files for students. And there should be this thing that says Sinfonia Unformatted, which I did today. So I finally find it. And then I click open. Now I will simply click and it will fill this in to the whole page, and the little red plus sign means there's more text that's in the story, but it's not showing. Now, first things first, we do have a problem with the paragraph spacing. So I'm going to put my cursor in here. And in InDesign, you can just simply double click and it'll turn into the type tool. So I'm going to click Control or Command A, select all the text. This even selects the hidden text. And then up here at the top, hold on just a second. I'm going to try to hide my zoom controls. Now, excuse me. I'm hitting all sorts of keyboard shortcuts that aren't seeming to function on Zoom. But up here at the top, once you have all this selected, you should have a control panel at the top. Right now, the capital A, which stands for character formatting, it's active. So I have character formatting active currently. What I really want to look at is the spacing. It brought in all sorts of space. That's under paragraph formatting. So that's this backwards P. Now, if I'm looking along here and I see zeros and everything, that looks pretty good. And then finally, I see this. If I flip my cursor over it, this is the space after paragraph. I want to put that at 0. Okay, you don't want a bunch of spaces in there. In fact, it looks like I have an extra space between intermission and gollywog. Now, that actually is an extra paragraph return. If you wanted to see the hidden non-printable characters, which I usually turn on while I'm working on something like this, I will click on Type in the upper menu part and go to the very bottom of that menu and choose Show Hidden Characters. And you'll start to see those backwards P's, and you know, for spaces, there's a dot. When the tab's been hit, in this case, it's a double arrow. Okay, so, and I'm trying to get rid of any standalone backwards P. So I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm still cleaning up a little bit. I'm going to hit Command 0, the number 0, and zoom out. Now, in taking out that space, I got all the text to show up now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So we'll go to File, Save, and you would want to save it as your last name, your first initial, and then AS5. I'm going to call this AS5 with, we'll call it C just for now. Just AS5 will be suffice, but I've done these a number of times, so I have to name them differently. But your last name, first initial, AS5. Save it to my assignment 5 folder. And now I'm ready to start playing around with some formatting. I will also go ahead and place, now I have to deselect this. So I get the selection tool, click off of the text box. I'm going to place the JPEG, which will help me figure out where everything goes. So I'm going to go to File, Place, and there should be that JPEG that I gave to you guys in the student file. So it's this program layout example, and get that JPEG, hit open. And I'm going to pop that in the very upper left-hand corner. And I really need to put it in its own layer. So I should build up a layer for it. So I'm going to hit the plus sign over in the layers panel. If your layers panel is not showing up over here, you will go to Window and Layers, and it'll pop up. Now I'm going to create a new layer. And then I'm going to get this artwork, which is selected, to move to the second layer I created. So you can see this little target right here. It's a little blue highlighted thing. It just says, that little thing indicates that this is selected and it's on this layer. So I'm going to move it by dragging it up to layer 2. And now it's on its own layer. Now I'm going to drag layer 2 under layer 1 because I need to work on top of that. Now for the layer 2, I do double click on that layer and I want to suppress printing on it. So I'm going to uncheck print layer, and it turns it in essence into then a template basically. So I'm going to click off of print layer, hit OK. And I also want to screen that back so I can see better. So in the top control panel, assuming you have the JPEG selected, you'll see this control panel for objects. Now, under the little letters effects, you'll see 100%. This is somewhere near center, depends on how big your monitor is. Sometimes if you have a smaller monitor, it's way out to the right. Mine's a little right of center because it's not a huge monitor. But you'll see this 100%. That's the opacity. I'm going to pop that back so I can still see it back there to use as a guide, but definitely have some contrast between that and the text above it. After I do that, I'm going to lock that layer, and I can always turn that layer off and on using the toggling the eyeball if I need to not see it. Now, I'm going to pull this window shade. I call them window shades, but they're actually anchor points. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so I can see what's going on in this section above, because we're going to have to build this up. Now, guys, there will only be a few text boxes here. We're going to have 1, 2, 3. We're going to have 3 text boxes for this little logo. We'll have 1 big text box for the title, and then another big text box for the rest of the text. So all told, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There will be 5 text boxes on this whole entire document. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I have had students who, on the portion below down here, they've had text boxes for every section or text boxes for every line, and that's not correct. This is all going to be 1 big text box. Just to show you here, here is the finished piece, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to hit the W key. There we go, we can see it. But here you can see that's 1 text box with all the text in there, okay? Now, back to this. We do have some images we need to bring in, and one of the first ones is this treble clef image. So we will go to File and Place. I usually use the selection tool to start this process and make sure no text boxes are selected, and make sure you're on the correct layer too. So I need to click on layer 1 and then go to File and Place, and I'm going to get that picture. So it's going to be in the Images folder, and it's called Treble Clef Logo, and it's an Adobe Illustrator file. Hit Open, and let's see what's going on here. Why am I getting the no edit symbol? Let's see. There we go, because that wasn't turned on. I didn't have layer 1 turned on. So let's go back. File, Place. I usually use Control or Command D and get the treble clef logo and open it. Now I should be able to click and just pop it in there. Now it is too large, but you can resize it. Just keep in mind, you must hold down the Shift key when you're resizing stuff. So that way it, oops, I'm sorry, Shift and Command. Let me get, hold on, I'm using a PC keyboard. Shift Command, click and drag. On a PC, but Shift and Control, click and drag. If you were to only use Shift, what happens is it crops the image. If you were to use only Command, it stretches the image. Okay, we know stretch graphics are not allowed. So you must use Shift and Command to do this. So Shift, Command, click and drag. If you click and wait and then start dragging, you'll actually see this changing live. So I'm going to resize this, pop it roughly in position. By the way, when I'm resizing and trying to move around, as long as I'm on my zoom tool, the magnifying glass, if I hold down the space bar, I can move things around. But I want to get this to roughly be the size of the original. I oftentimes will use the arrow keys on the keyboard to get things to work out. And again, I'm going to hold down Shift and Command or Shift and Control if on a PC. I'm going to resize this so it stays in proportion to the original one. Okay, and I'm going to pop that in place. And we're looking for pretty close. Okay, that's pretty close. Next, I'm going to work with the text that's underneath that logo. The word the, Sinfonia, and a cooperative professional chamber orchestra. So I'm going to copy, I'm going to just copy the and cut it actually. This would be Command or Control X, or edit, cut, Command or Control X. And I'm going to create it its own text box. I'll do it out here in the pasteboard and hit Command or Control V. And I'll also highlight that capital T and make it a lowercase t. According to this, it's a lowercase t. The font is Helvetica Italic, and it's going to be Helvetica New, and it's going to be one that is that I've supplied. Now, if I click on the A up in the control panel after selecting the word the, I can now change that font to Helvetica. Now, if I start typing in Helvetica, it'll automatically go to all the Helveticas, and that's a lot of Helveticas. But the Helveticas that I supplied to you has the O for open type, and it also has the LT and STD. This will be Helvetica Italic, Helvetica New Italic, and it needs to have that. open type and the LTSTD. Okay, that little O for open type. Excuse me. Once I get that changed, I can double click on the little corner nodule right here, corner anchor point, and it will automatically squeeze into that so it's not a big box with a little piece of type in it. I'll move this over to the position it needs to go to, zooming in. And I may need to resize it just a little bit. So again, I'm going to hold down Command and Shift or Control and Shift, click, wait just a second, and then I can see it live and resize that to the size that it needs to be. And again, it needs to just be really close. So there's the. I'll zoom out a little bit and we'll work with the next word, which is Sinfonia. So I'm going to copy or cut Sinfonia. So I double click to grab it, Command X or Control X to cut it. And then again, off to the side, I usually just create a box and paste, which is Control or Command V. Now I'm going to make this box a little bit bigger because it's going to be needing to be bigger because this is a bigger font. Now, this is the font where we are having problems sometimes. If you guys don't have the Adobe Typekit fonts, you may not have the Adorn S Commander. I can't remember if it's bold or regular. I'll try bold. But I'm looking for the Adorn S Commander. Now, if you don't have that, which I know many students cannot access that for some reason or another, Adobe Typekit is not the same on all of ours. You may use a different typeface, such as Edwardian Script, which I may not have loaded because this is a Mac, but if you're on a PC, you likely, excuse me, have that. If you don't have Adorn S Commander or Edwardian Script, what you can look at is scroll down and you can see over in the second column right here what the font looks like. And you can find perhaps a different, not italic, script typeface. So here's Buffet script. There's also one called Kunstler script, which I don't know if I have loaded, but I'm just looking in this aisle right here, or this column, for pretty ornate script typefaces, assuming you do not have Adorn S Commander. Okay, so I'm not going to be too particular if you use a different font, so long as it is script and kind of fancy. Okay, now let's get back to this. So this is my fancy script looking font. Again, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the little corner so that way it pops into one nice little box. I'm going to bring it over, and now I'm going to again hold down Shift and Command or Shift and Control, and let me pop it kind of up in the corner here, and then Shift and Control or Shift and Command, click, wait a second so you can see it live, and then start dragging it. So this lets me see it exactly as it's enlarging. I can see exactly what it's doing. So I'm going to pop this up into place, and that's pretty close, so I'm pretty happy with it. Now, as far as underneath the Sinfonia, there's a couple of lines. They are broken. They're there to make it look like it's kind of an optical illusion of making it look like it's piercing the F. So we're going to get the line tool, draw a little line, hold down the Shift key while you're doing it. And by default, it usually makes it 1 point. There is a strokes panel, and here it is, 1 point black. If you don't see that that's black and it uses a different color, you can always go to your swatches panel, activate your stroke and tell it to be black. Okay, so if that's not working, you can always fix it. Now I'm going to take this line, I'm going to copy it over exactly and keep it in line with the original by holding down the Option or Alt key, Alt on a PC, Option on Mac. I click and drag. If you hold down the Shift key after you start dragging, you'll see that it stays perfectly in line. And then I can pull it to the edge of the one that's underneath there. So just kind of lining it up. Now, if I really wanted to give an optical illusion, I could take this line, copy it, paste it in front of itself in just a second, but I'll stroke this a little thicker. And with white, this is just a little trick, optical illusion trick, stroke with paper. then paste that black one on top of it. So edit, paste in place, because we copied the black one earlier. And what this does is it gives a optical illusion, kind of an impression that this is piercing and then going through, because you put a little white space above and below that. Now you can do that if you like, just to try it, but if you don't get that little white space there, no big deal. Just want to show you, it's just more believable if you have that than if you have without. This just isn't quite as visually believable. So that makes a big difference for as little as it is. Now we're getting ready to go down to the next line, which would be the chamber orchestra line. So let's get that, or the cooperative professional chamber orchestra. We're going to 3 clicks on that. 1, 2, 3 quick clicks will get you the whole line. So we're going to cut that, which is Command or Control X. And again, I'll go off to the side here on the pasteboard and just paste it. Command or Control V as in Victor. By the way, down here, if you see any backwards P's, you want to go ahead and delete those. So I had an extra backwards P. I'm going to turn back on my layer that has the original piece, and I want to see what's going on here. So I'm going to select all of the text. This text is set in Garamond, and it's Adobe Garamond Pro. So I'm going to get my, if I highlight the font, which right now is just some generic, and start typing in GARA, it'll go to the Garamonds. It'll even show the Adobe Garamond Pro. So I'm going to use the Adobe Garamond Pro regular, which is what I have supplied. Guys, don't use the defaults that are already in there. You want the one with the O, that's the open type font. So Adobe Garamond Pro regular is what you want, and it does matter. And we want this to be, looks like all caps is what the original design has. So I'm going to select all that. And assuming you are in the character control panel, which is the A, you have these options as far as caps, all caps, small caps, and so on, superscript, subscript. But this is what we want. This double T that's the same size as all caps. Now we do have a problem, and this is too large. Now this is already selected text. I hit Control A or Command A to grab it, so it's all selected, even though the hidden stuff is gone. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut to reduce the size of the type. It's Shift, Command, and the comma, which is also the lesser than key, will bring it down in size. Okay. Shift, Command, or Control, Shift, Control on a PC, period, where you can see on the period there's a greater than sign. Well, it can make it larger within that box. So Shift, Command, or Shift, Control, lesser than, or comma, makes it smaller. Now I will go ahead and center this text as well. But keep deselecting, which is not efficient. I want to center this text. And in the character control panel, you'll see that the alignments for text is pretty far over to the right, just right of center. And you'll see this is left align, center align, and right align. If I click on the center align, it will center align that. Now, the box does need to be a little narrower so that it can fit all in there. And I'll shorten it up by double clicking on the bottom there. And I can pop this into position. And I may even have to hold down the Shift and Command or Shift and Control, click and drag to make this a little bit smaller. So it'll fit in there in a very similar way as the original. So there we go. That's pretty close. And I'll pop that up into place. It looks like the leading is about the same as what the original is. So we have about 6-point type over, this is auto leading when it has parentheses. So about 6.5 points leading. That default is working, the auto leading. And leading is the space between the lines of type. So if I click up, it'll widen it. If I click down, it'll make it more narrow. So we want that to be pretty close to what the original has. So we've got that done. I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save. We're ready to move on to the next section of the piece. And I'm going to zoom out, Control or Command, and the number 0. And for something like this, I'll probably break the text links between one box and another, because this being the headline text, it doesn't need to flow with the next line. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag all the way down to the word director. And it's all the text that's going to go up in this header. And I'm going to cut it by hitting Command X, Control X, or go to Edit and Cut. So it cuts it right out of there. Then I'll draw a text box up here near the top, and I will paste it. Edit, paste. And I do want to get rid of this extra return. You can see the cursors below that text. So while it's blinking and below the text, I'm going to hit the backspace key one time just to get that extra space out of there. Now we're ready to format this text in a way similar to what is done on the original. So let me pull this down so I can see what's going on. We do need to put our cursor before the Sinfonia, the word Sinfonia. I'll delete the extra space, hit the return. And then chamber series should be on its own line. So I'm going to put my cursor before the C in chamber, delete the extra, delete the space, hit return. Presents should be on its own line. So I'm going to put my cursor before the P in presents, delete the space, hit return. Even if the salon, everything else looks like it's okay. It's on the right line. I also want to select all the text and center it. Now there is a keyboard shortcut for center. It's Shift Command or Shift Control C for center. So I'm going to go Shift Control C for center. Now there's also a keyboard shortcut for right align, left align, and justify. Now these are all also found with little visuals up here. But if I wanted left align, it would be Shift Control or Shift Command L for left. If I want it right aligned, it's Shift Command or Shift Control R for right. But again, we want Shift Control C for center. But you'll see these will change depending on what I have selected. Now, the again is going to be Helvetica, and it needs to be the Helvetica Roman and the open type version. Make sure you're using the fonts I supply. If you don't, you don't get all your points. Okay, so we just made that Helvetica Roman. This, oh no, I'm sorry, that's not Helvetica, that's Garamond. My apologies. You can tell a big difference because this T has a little stick at the end. That's called a serif, and it has a stick at the bottom. They're little refined finishing strokes at the ends of main strokes. This has none, so that can't be it. This must be Garamond. So I'm going to go again, triple click inside of the font name and start typing in the font. And we want to use a Garamond Pro regular. This will look, yeah, that looks a lot better. That looks like what it's supposed to. So that's for that. As far as the size goes, I can always pull this up and see what's going on and reposition the box a little bit or shorten it just to kind of get things to align. So just to get this stuff to work out nicely, I'm going to shorten the box this way. Maybe I'll pull it down just a smidge this way. All right, so it looks like it's lining up pretty well, and we'll just work from the top down. Now, the word Sinfonia is that adorn. I'm going to just highlight the font and start typing in ADORN, and it'll go to this Adorn as Pomander. I think it was bold. Again, if you don't have that, use Edwardian script, Kunstler script, or some other script that looks kind of like this. Now, this needs to change size. Now, I could either use the keyboard shortcut of Shift Command or Shift Control greater than, which is where your period is. And that's how I like to do things, just by eye. Or I could sit here and try to push buttons and make this bigger or smaller this way. That takes a lot more time. Now, the leading is incredibly large on this typeface, so we need to take it down so it'll move up. So, you know, the leading is the amount of space between two lines of type, so this empty space. So I'm going to, again, triple click on Sinfonia and take this leading down until it works better with the alignment of the original. Okay, so we just got that about 15 points leading, 27 points of type. Chamber series is probably also 15 or 27 points of type. So I'm going to triple click on that line and just type inside of the space or height of the type. This is the size of type, 27. And of course, I want to make it Adorn Hump Pomander and make it the Adorn S Pomander bold. Now, this again will need some leading adjustment. So in this case, I'm just going to adjust it using the arrows. So I want to take this down, take away leading. So I'm going to use the down button and get it to the point where it lines pretty well with the one that's placed underneath there for reference. Presents is going to be Garamond, Adobe Garamond Pro to be exact. So I'm typing in Gara and it goes right to the Garamond Pro. And this would be, or Garamond fonts, this would be again regular. And it's a little bit bigger than what we have currently. So I'm going to pop that up a little bit. It's like it's about 14 point. And I need to push it down, give it extra leading. So there needs to be more space between presents and series touching. So I'm going to use the up arrow. It seems counterintuitive to use an up arrow to go down, but we're increasing the space. So we do that until it gets in the right position. All right, so we're getting there, and I'm going to hit Command or Control S to save it. Let's zoom out just a little bit. All right. Now we are ready. I'm going to hide this layer. We are ready to set the next line of type. So I get in there and I triple click. This is all the, again, the Adorn S Pomander, Adorn, oops. And likely would be bold, or again, it could be Edwardian script, Kunstler script, or a fancy script, the font that you found. You just want to just kind of get it set similarly. The size of it, I'm just going to keep hitting the button up until it looks like it's about right. This may be a little bit big, I'm not sure. I'm looking at the word evening. I'm not looking at the rest of the words. We also need to adjust the leading so it kind of lines up along that baseline. And we do have something going on this one where the word and the words at the are a smaller, they're smaller than evening and salon. So that's the reason why it's kind of gotten out of whack here. So on the and, I'm going to select it and I'm going to go to the type size area and take that down until it looks similar to what I have on the original one. So there, that went down about 25 points. I'll do the same with the at and the. I'll just type in a 25 and then hit the tab key. Now that works out pretty well. It's not exactly the same as what we have as far as the position goes. I may have to go into the evening and increase it once, salon, increase it once, you know, maybe have to do that a couple times just to get things to kind of feel like they're aligned more properly. So all told, it looks like the and at the are 25 points type. And then the evening and salon are 34 points of type. And the leading's at 24 on all of them. Now we're ready to move down to the next line. All of this from Friday down to director is all Adobe Garamond Pro. So I've selected all of it. And I'll start typing in Garamond and find the Adobe Garamond Pro regular. I do need to move Friday, June 18th, 8 p.m. down a lot. So I'm going to triple click on it. And on the leading amount, which is right here, I'm going to bump that up until it more or less lines up below. Now, is it the right size? No, it seems a little big. So I'm going to select all this stuff and take it down a point or so. Looks like 10 point type might be about right. So we got 10 points of type. Generally, we have auto leading on most of it. That's right here. You'll see there's auto leading. And the only thing that's not auto leading is Friday, June 18th. Now, while we are here, we will see, and this is a small detail, but it's something that you do need to work on. We will see that the PM, that's an acronym, and acronyms are supposed to be typeset as small caps. So if I highlight just the P, the M, and the periods, in the character control panel, so again, the A has to be selected, you will see a large capital T and then a small capital T. That's called small caps. So if I click on that, the two lowercase letters will turn into small caps. And that's the proper way to typeset AM, PM, and acronyms such as NASA, USA, that kind of thing. Now, I am going to save this again. I want to save often. let's see what we're missing here. It looks like we are missing a couple of lines, one that separates the logo from the header and the whole entire long length, pretty good line that separates the whole entire header space. So we'll go ahead and turn back on layer 1 and work on layer 1, and we'll get the line tool and we'll build that. So this is the line tool, just looks like a little line. And I'll just click near where the original one is, hold down the shift key so it stays perfectly straight and doesn't angle. And there's our line. I may have to move it over just one using the, I had to move it just using the little arrows on the keyboard. Now this should be probably a half a point line, or it's pretty thin. So on your strokes panel, if you don't see a strokes panel over here, go to Window, Stroke. But on the strokes panel, you may want to take that down, not to 0, but to say a 0.5. So you'll have to maybe click on the arrow for the drop-down menu and choose 0.5. We'll do the same, we'll draw the line here below, holding down the shift key after you start drawing it, and go from end to end. And again, that should also be a 0.5 line, nice and thin. The thing I want to do is make sure that down where these two come together, that they are actually crossing over slightly, because if you have it like this, that's bad, or that's poor digital craft. So we're going to pull that down just a little bit, and then we'll just zoom back out. Command or Control 0. So currently I have the header done, the logo done, and all the lines done. Now we're ready to get to the business of what we call the body, or some people call it text type. Some people call it body copy. I'll call it either one. So this is just all one text box, just so you can see. I'll pull that up so it kind of more or less aligns with what's below it. I'll fix it if I need to. And we need to go through and start modifying the formatting here. So usually the first thing I do is like majority rules. So I'm looking at this going, okay, this font all the way down for the most part is all Garamond Pro, Adobe Garamond Pro. So I'm going to put my cursor in here and then hit Command or Control A to select all of the text and go ahead and make this Garamond Pro. Again, it would be the Adobe Garamond Pro. For the most part, it's going to be regular. We have some italics in there. Let me see what we got here. We'll just do regular for now. Again, Adobe Garamond Pro regular. Oops, I need to type in Garamond. There we go. Now I will pull this down so it kind of lines up to what's underneath it. And then, excuse me, then I'm going to do some formatting. Now I could go ahead and, this is aligning to what is called the grid. So this text box aligns to the right margin and the left margin. That's okay. But if you wanted to, it would be a little less work if we pulled this in and made this align to the type below it on that side, and then same thing over here. Just kind of get it close, not touching. Tight, but not touching. So we just narrowed the type box just a little bit. Now, I do have my hidden characters on, and again, to turn those on, it's under Type and Show Hidden Characters. So I don't want to hide them. I'm going to leave them on. This tells me where the tabs are and other things. So that's a tab right there, and that's really important that it's there. Now I'm going to go in and start formatting this text. It does appear as if this is all italic for the name of the concert. So I am going to choose, instead of Adobe Garamond Pro Regular, I'm going to choose italic, because the majority of that's italics. Now, this GF Handel needs to move over. Here's what I don't want you to do. Do not put your cursor in there and hit the tab key a couple times, or hit the tab key once and then the space bar. That is not proper formatting. You will definitely not get your points, all your points on that if you do that. So we're not going to align it that way. What we do is we set the tab. So there's a tab icon. That means somebody hit the tab key to get that to move over. But we need to use the tab options here in InDesign to move the tab so it'll line over there to the right. Now, when things line up on the rights like this, that is actually known as a right tab, right aligned tab. So let's bring up the tabs and see how to get this to work. Now, this is not easy for the first time, so I'll try to go slow and try to be as descriptive as I can. To bring up tabs, you go to Type and Tabs, and there's Shift Command T or Shift Control T. You use them a lot. There's a keyboard shortcut, but Type and Tabs. Now, if your tabs pop up somewhere other than right over the text box and aligned to it, you want to click on the little magnetic icon, so it'll position the panel above the text frame. Now, you will see a number of things that you probably have not seen before. You'll see these little arrows. Each of these is a different kind of tab. So there's a left tab, a center tab, a right tab, and a decimal point tab. There's also a little gray bar with little tiny arrows. These are broken arrows, and over on the right, it's a single arrow. These indicate either a left indent or a first line indent or both. So right now we have no indents. And this is the can be a right indent if we need it. We don't need indents on this right now at the moment. Later, we might need a left indent on Adagio and Tempo and whatever. But for Concerto Grosso, we don't need any indents. It's good where it is. Underneath that gray, light gray bar is a ruler. And that's how wide the typographic box is. And it can be confusing. If you click and drag on the ruler, you can see that that top little gray band goes black. Well, that means that that is not a text box. So it's like the text box isn't that far out. The text box ends at 4 inches, more or less. So we're going to pull that back over and align it. Now, what we do want to do is set a right tab. So the first thing we do, right now the left tab is selected by default, but we need to click on the right tab, right justified tab. And then this is the tricky part, knowing where to click and being careful with it. I'm going to come out near the right of the bar, and I'm not going to go right exactly to the triangle just yet, but I'm going to click one time and you'll see, assuming I have the right tab selected, you'll see it'll pop a right tab in there. You'll also see that the GF handle moved to the right. Now, very carefully, and this is the hard part for people to get, very carefully, we can move that tab wherever we want. But if we pull down, it disappears. Uh-oh. So let me put it back in, grab the right tab, pop it in. If we pull up, it disappears. Oh gosh, what a pain. So let me get the right tab, pop it back in there. Oops. I think I just accidentally did not get the right tab and I clicked right on that right indent. That's why I click away from it a little bit. So we don't want to click on that arrow that is the right indent. I want to go just left of it. Once you get that tab in there, then carefully click and drag it to the edge of the, oops. Now I went way past my ruler edge, way past the edge of my box. You can see even there's a line off to the side. I want to click and drag that so it ends up right at the edge of the typographic text box. Okay. And again, I may have to pull this back over. When you see black up here above the ruler, that's usually not a good thing, not a good sign. So you want this right tab to be as far to the right as possible without going off into the black. There we go. So we set the right tab. Guys, tabs are something that people, even professionals, if they've not used them before, and if I teach them how to use them, it takes a while to catch on. Now, in the layers panel, I'm going to turn off this text, and you can see underneath there, there's little dots between in the space of the tab. Those little dots are known as leader characters. So I'm going to, again, make sure this text is selected. I'm going to highlight this tab, make sure it's selected. Try not to move it. Click on it. And I'm going to put a leader character in there. Now you can hit the space bar and then the period, then hit the tab key and it'll show you what you get. Now, the reason why I wanted a space bar and a period, because if I only put a period in, you'll see It's really a lot of dots, really a little too much for me. So I decided to put spacebar period to soften that blow a little bit, not have it be quite so, jarring. So fewer dots. And again, you have to select the tab to be able to affect it. So if this little tab's not selected, it won't be able to affect it. So you'll want to click on the tab and then put the space bar and the period in there. Again, I'm going to move him back to where he belongs. That's one of the ways to practice tabs is move them around. Now, the next line of type is going to be a little bit smaller. It's got a left indent. Now, I still have my tabs thing up here. I'm going to have to move the ruler so none of the black shows, and so I can see these double little arrows right here. One of these is a left indent and the other one is a first line indent. So let's see what happens if I pull this in. Will this work? It's actually both came in, so that's perfect. So I just pulled that in so that it aligns to what's underneath. We know that this is Adobe Garamond Pro, but it's too big. So I'm going to take this down a couple notches, and probably at about 9 point would be pretty good. And I do need to set the tab for the dates or the years. So while this text is selected, I'm going to choose the right tab, pop it out near the arrow, but not right on top of it. And then once I get it in position, I'll pull it to the right as far as I can. If you see black, come back. You want to get right on that arrow. And there we go. So I just set the right tab for the year. Another thing about this is if you look at the original, the 1685 to 1759, it mimics upper and lower case letters. So that's called a proportional old style non-lining numbers. So I'm going to go back into my layers, turn that on, select this line of type. And I do want those numbers to be proportional old style non-lining. Well, how do we get that? Well, Adobe Garamond Pro has it. Most fonts don't, but the word Pro is the giveaway. Now, if I go to the far upper right corner of my control panel, you'll see a lightning bolt, settings button for, it looks like a gear, and then you'll see a hamburger button, which is just 3 lines. Click on the 3 lines. You'll get a flyout menu. The topmost item is open type, and you want that to also have a flyout menu. And when you go down to 4 items up from the bottom, you'll choose proportional old style, and you'll see that the dates changed, or the years. They now mimic upper and lower case. Now, I don't want to necessarily have to do that formatting and click on each line and set the tab and set the font and set the leading, set the indents, all that. I have everything I need for the most part to set all of the concerts and the names and stuff. I have about all I need now, and I can use it over and over again. This is called formatting. So this formatting I can use over and over again. I can kind of create what is called a paragraph style out of this formatting, and I can apply that later to the other ones. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to learn about paragraph styles. So to bring up paragraph styles, you go to Window, Styles, and bring up Paragraph. Always work in paragraph styles first. Paragraph styles are what the majority of the paragraph is set as. Character styles we'll discuss later, but you want to start with paragraph styles. Now, here's the paragraph styles pane. I am, with this text selected and already correctly formatted, I'm going to hit the plus sign to create a new paragraph style. It will automatically name it paragraph style 1. I will have to click on it and then double click to change the name. So I usually number them. I'm like, okay, this is number 1 paragraph style, and this is the concert name, let's just say. Then, since I have the tempo, gusto allegro, and the year, that's already formatted. So I'm going to create a paragraph style for that. So I'm going to go to the next line. And oftentimes I will triple click. Now, if I triple click, it'll grab the whole line, including the hidden character, this little guy right here. If you triple click and something is left blank up in the character control panel, that means the backwards P, this hidden character, is a different font, different point size, different leading. It's something's different about it. So you do want to make sure that when you select text, a line of text, you triple click so it'll grab the hidden character so it won't give you problems later. So if you see blanks up in here, you'll have to, go and choose Adobe Garamond Pro Regular 9 over Auto. Now I'm going to create a paragraph style for it. Click the plus sign, double click, call it number 2, and call it tempo, allegro, adagio, allegro, etc. And hit OK. I'm not worried about anything over here just yet. Just renaming it. And you can restack these, so I will stack number 2 underneath number 1. Now, the cool thing about this is I can just go in with my cursor. These all 3 need to be tempo, allegro, and so on. So I'm going to highlight those and say, hey, you guys are tempo, adagio, and allegro. I spelled adagio incorrectly. Let's do that correctly. And they will follow suit to what's above them, which is what we created the paragraph style out of. String quartet in G major. Well, that's a concert name. Well, it's not moving down, and it should, but it did do the formatting. Now, guys, after you create a paragraph style, any additional paragraph formatting, including spaces before a paragraph, should be handled by editing the paragraph style. This is incorrect. You do not put your cursor in the beginning of this line and hit the return key until it lines up. That is absolutely incorrect. So we're going to hit Control Z. Instead, I'm going to have this selected. Double click on my paragraph style, not the name of it, but just in the kind of bluish gray area. And we're going to click on preview, make sure preview is selected. We want to see it actively changing. And we're going to adjust the spacing. So we need to move it down. So if I look, we can see general. Well, that's pretty boring stuff. Basic character formats. Oh, Adobe Garamond Pro italic. Okay. Let's go to indents and spacing, because that's what we need, spacing. So we need a space before this paragraph. So here it says space before. We're going to click that arrow up until it lines up to the original that we have placed as a kind of a template layer. So the space before it is about 1/4 of an inch. Now, when I like what I see, I just hit OK. And I keep on keeping on. So here we have presto, adagio, tempo. Those are all number 2 paragraph style. They automatically, boom, just get right into what they need to be. Intermission is its own little thing. We'll get to it later. Gallywog's Cakewalk, however, is a number 1 concert name. Here's the year. Tempo, allegro, tempo, adagio. Now it's not going in the right position, so I'm going to have to figure that out. Then we have, meaning this needs to go to the right. Then we have, this should also be a number 2. Again, we're going to have to move that, but not yet. Then this should be a number 1. Oh, that's interesting. I'm trying to figure out why that went so far out. Oh, it looks like there's 2 tabs in there. So if I click off of here, you'll see double arrow here and double arrow there. Sometimes you can't see the tabs are really short in the hidden characters. So you occasionally miss getting rid of an extra tab. So I'm going to put my cursor in here, hit the delete key once, get rid of that extra tab. And now the name of the composer is back where it needs to be. Here's tempo number 2, another number 2 paragraph style. This would be a number 1. This is a number 2. You don't even have to double click. You just single click inside. I just double click so you can tell where I'm at. But and I have to hit Control Z because Lisa Morris, first violin, that's a whole separate thing. These guys are centered, so I'm going to go ahead and select all of that. Shift Command or Shift Control C to center. Now we're not done yet. I am going to save it though, because there's still some things that aren't working out very well. First off, intermission needs to be centered. So Shift Command C or Shift Control C. It also needs to be all caps and italics. So let's go to the all caps button up here in the control panel. Click on that. It's no, it's not all caps, it's small caps, excuse me. I see that the first letter is taller, so that's small caps. The size or the style instead of regular would be italic. And then I'll sit there with the size and pop that up until it's about as wide as it needs to be. Close. I also have to work on some of the spacing below it and maybe above it. So I will go into my paragraph formatting control panel and give it a little space above the paragraph. Now this is the space above. It has a box above a paragraph. So I'm going to increase that till it moves down to where it needs to go. There we go. So we put about an 1/8 of an inch space. Now we do need little long dashes before intermission and after intermission. I'm going to put my cursor before intermission. And these long dashes can be found in what is called the glyphs panel. The glyphs panel can be found under the word type. And then 6 items down is the word glyphs. And here you will see in the glyphs panel, all the glyphs for Adobe Garamond Pro. Every font has different glyphs, so they're not all the same. So what I'm looking for is a very long dash, and I'm scrolling down until I can see, these really long dashes. So I'm going to double click on it and it will insert that long dash, and I'll also put it in recently used. Also, I will hit the space bar to get a little bit of space between the long dash and the intermission. I can close my glyphs because now I can just simply copy and paste this little typographic icon. And again, this is Command or Control C, paste it, go to the end of the intermission, hit the space bar, and then paste that, Command V. Now this isn't aligning perfectly to what's going on below, but that's okay. I want the text centered. I need the 2 long dashes with a little space between them and the type. That works. So if it doesn't align perfectly, no big deal. It just needs to look nice and aligned to the type. Now, there is other problems we need to solve here. It looks like when under intermission, when we start with the last 3 songs, their dates are needing to push to the right. Now I can do this. I can just put my cursor in here and hit the tab key once, and it should move them over because we have a right tab already set. So I think that's what we'll do just to make it easy. Tab that over, put my cursor before 1875 and the parenthesis and hit tab. The arrangement, put my cursor before it, hit tab. Same thing with 1875 down below and another arrangement. There we go. Now I'm going to save this again. I save often. There is a slight difference in what I have here versus what's below. The composer's name is supposed to be not italic. So if I go to my layers, you'll see this. Everything's italic in this line except for the name of the composer. Now, when you have an element within the same paragraph that is slightly different, we would then fix that and make a character style out of it. So when one of these things is not like the others, and it's individual characters like this is a character style. So I'm selecting GF Handel. I'm going to the character control panel. And I'm making this Roman or regular, yes. Okay, so it's not italic. Now, in order for that to stick and be able to apply to the other ones, I am going to bring up a character style. And by the way, on my panels here, I have the character and paragraph styles already set here. But if you don't, again, it's under Window, Styles, and I'll bring up Character. And if they're popped out like so, you can always get them together and then bring them into the panel out here if you need to. So I have my character styles up. I have GF Handel, not bolded, it's regular, and I'm ready to make a character style from it. Again, character styles are for individual little characters. There's small batches of characters within the whole paragraph, but little ones that are a little different. I'm going to click this plus sign, and then I'll call it character style 1. I click on it, rename it. I'm going to call this, I think I only have 1 character style, so I'm not going to number it. Composer name. Hit the enter key. Now I will select each of the composer's names and click on the composer name character style. So that way they all are the same. Now I'll talk about the benefits of paragraph and character styles here in just a moment, other than this obvious ones here of, yay, you can just hurry up and just go through and apply styles instead of having to go through and make it, oh, however many points type, whatever font, and so on. Well, we'll talk about the benefits here in a minute. Down below, we have Lisa and Helen and all these people on. These are the instrumentalists. I'm going to go back to paragraph styles. I will reduce these down just a little bit in size. They are a little bit big. Looks like they're maybe 9-point type. Lisa Morrison being the first one on top, she's going to need to pop down a little bit. So we're going to adjust the leading. We want a little bit more leading between this line and the line above it. So we're going to put the up arrow to get things to move down. And looks like I did a little too far. Oops. Just looking at the Lisa stuff. And maybe a little less even. So Lisa Morris should be roughly, in a position where she's about 13 points leading. And then the other ones, Angel, Marilyn, and Helen, there's going to be more leading. So they need to drop down a little bit. So I'm going to pop the leading up, increase the leading for them. There we go. They all have the same amount of space between them. It's just that Lisa has a little bit more space above her. Now I could create a paragraph style from this if I wanted to. It's okay if I do. I just, they're all the same, but I'll just select them all, do new paragraph style, and I'll call this, oops, cancel. I accidentally clicked on the wrong style. And we'll call this instrumentalist. Number 3, instrumentalists. I usually, again, pop it down the bottom. I see a plus sign here, so I'm going to click on no plus sign, clear that formatting, because I accidentally got click happy. I clicked on the wrong paragraph style after I made it, and then I had to reapply it and had to clean it up. Looks like the leading's a little wide on this, so I'm going to grab them. Well, I know why. This is the hard part. This has separate leading, it did, than the one below. Now they're all the same. Let me see if I can edit that paragraph style. This one's a little tougher to deal with. This again would be spacing or basic character formats. Take that down just a little bit. Hit OK. And much, much better. So this is actually, all of these lines of type have 12 points of leading. So that, but we don't click and drag and then set it up here after we create a paragraph style. Once you create a paragraph style, you always edit any formatting through modifying or double clicking on the paragraph style and changing things here. Okay, now they do have some special characters on this, these instrumentalists. There are little diamond shapes to the left and right of each of their names. Okay, so we need to get those. Those might be a glyph, they might not. Let's find out. First, I'm going to put my cursor before the L in Lisa, and I'm going to bring up my glyphs again by going to type and glyphs. And I'm looking for a diamond. Now, some fonts have them, some fonts don't. So let's see if I can find any diamonds. And I usually have to take a minute to look at all of these characters and just kind of glean over and find what I need to find. Excuse me. And if it doesn't have a diamond, we can always make one and do what is called an inline graphic, a graphic that's in line with a typography. So I don't see a diamond yet still. No, I see a circle, but no diamonds. Okay, so no diamonds, darn. I was hoping I could just find a little diamond and pop it in there. Well, in this case, the glyphs didn't really provide much fruit. Zoom out just a little bit. Now, I want to deselect the type. So I'm going to choose the selection tool and click off of it. So I don't want to have this box of type selected right now. I do want to create a diamond shape. So I'm going to go in with the one of the basic shapes, the rectangle tool. And I'll just out here near the pasteboard, hold down the shift key and drag a little box. I'll zoom in. I can even move this over to near the type so I can make sure it's about the right size. I just want to make sure I'm not in a type box. So this needs to have its fill black and stroke nothing. So right now it's the opposite of that. So this swaps the fill and stroke. So there we go, fill of black, stroke of nothing. And I do probably want to resize this just a little bit. Again, I'm going to hold down Shift and Command, click and drag so it stays perfectly square. And then I'll rotate it 90 degrees. So with the selection tool, it automatically turns into a rotation tool when you're out at one of the corners. I want to hold down the Shift key and click and drag till it's a 45-degree angle. Okay. Now, using the direct selection tool, which we've used before in Illustrator, I can click on one of the anchor points here. Sometimes I have to hold down the Shift key to grab it, click on it, and then let off the Shift key and click on it again. I'll use the arrow key to arrow it over. Same thing with this one. Get a little diamond shape. Now, I will cut that. So Edit, Cut, or Command Control X. So I just deleted it. And to make it an inline graphic, I can put my cursor before the L in Lisa and paste it. So I go to Edit, Paste. Now it's probably not going to be in the right position. This needs to be kind of optically centered to the letters. So I am going to also hit the space bar because there's a little space between the two. And then I'm going to highlight the diamond and I'm going to nudge that up a little bit. Nudging it up is called a baseline shift. Right now, the bottom of that diamond lines perfectly to the bottom of the L, the I, and so on. I need to push it up to optically make it feel more balanced. I'm going to move the baseline by using this baseline shift option in the character control panel. So make sure your backwards A is selected, or I'm sorry, make sure the capital A is selected. And this capital A, little a, with the little a pushed up, this is the indicator of a baseline shift. So I'm going to use the arrow and push that up maybe just 1 point. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I will simply copy that, edit, copy. I'm going to get off the type tool because I want to move some things around. Let's get this to be a little bit easier to deal with. And now I am going to paste it because I copied it at the end of first violin space bar and Control or Command V for paste. And what I'll normally do is I'll just click and drag the space and the diamond and copy, Control C, and then click next to Angel, paste, Command Control V. Same thing with Marilyn, Command Control V, and Helen. Then I'll get the triangle and space, or not triangle, diamond and space from the end of the first line, copy it, Command C, and go to the end of each word of each next line and paste in the space and the diamond and save. So I have an inline character that automatically would flow with the text. So it's not like I made little boxes and just stuck them out there. Because if something happens where I need to make some adjustments, I want those little characters to flow with the type. So we want an inline graphic. I'm hitting Command or Control and the number 0. We do have a couple of images that need to be put in here. Let me go in here and lock this layer. I'm going to make this a little darker so we can see them. We need a treble clef kind of screen back behind the text. And then down below, we need a violin with its bow and a couple of little lines. These should be lining up to the grid. It's just sometimes when you make a JPEG, it's just slightly off. So we'll get those to line to the grid. And these diamonds look like they're actually gray, so I may have to go in there and adjust those. Darn it, I didn't realize. So I'm going to turn off this layer for a moment, turn on the other layer. Go ahead and let's adjust those diamonds because they didn't want them quite as emphasized. How you do that is, let's see if we can just click and drag. And I'm going to go to the swatches panel. Oh, what a pain. It doesn't act like it's typed. So you've got this no fill, no color. I'm going to have to use a direct selection tool. I'm going to have to select each one of these diamonds. What a pain. I wish I'd seen that before. And each of these diamonds will need to be filled with a tint of gray. So let's just say 50%. So I'm going to type in a 50 there. I'd like to shift click and do them all at one time, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It's only allowing me to do one at a time. What a pain. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do the least painful thing, make each of these gray, and then I'll copy and paste them. That's going to be over the black ones. What a pain. I wish I would have caught that earlier. So I'm going to make those light gray, then copy them and paste them over the black ones. There we go. Then I'm going to save it. All right. Whoops. Using the wrong keyboard for the wrong thing here. Now we're going to place the large treble clef in the back of this piece. I'm going to hit Command and the number 0 to zoom out. I probably could create an images layer. That probably would be smart of me to do that. So I'm going to go into my layers, click on layer 2, and then hit the plus sign. It'll put a layer between the type layer and my little template layer. I'm going to double click on this and call this images. That way I can clearly see that's my layer for images. I'm going to lock layer 1, lock layer 2. Layer 2 I can turn off and on as necessary, but I'm on my images layer. We'll go to File and Place, or Command or Control D, and we'll go find, I believe it's called the Music Staff, and it's a TIFF, Tagged Image File Format. That's what that stands for. So I click on that Music Staff TIFF and I hit Open. And I'm going to click roughly where it belongs. Now this is really rather large, so I'm going to turn on my layer for my template, leave this selected, and now holding down Shift and Command or Shift and Control, I'm going to click, hold for just a second so I can make sure I can see it live, and then drag and make this about the size of what's below it. Again, I still have Shift and Command selected, and I'm going to click and drag and make it about the same size as what it is below, and then move it to the position it needs to be moved in. Sometimes I use the arrow key for that. So this is in position, and it's under the type layer. Now I do need to screen it back. I just turned off layer 2. I need to make this softer quite a bit. So while this is selected, I can look at this opacity up here under the FX button and adjust that to be about 10%. So I'm just going to highlight this and type in 10, hit the tab key, and there we go. So it's about 10% show through, and it needs to be very light because we don't want people to have a hard time reading that typography. Now that's that image. Now the next image is going to be the violin with the bow. So I'm going to go to File and Place. I probably should have layer 2 on. File, Place, make sure you're in your correct layer. Again, I usually use the keyboard command shortcut of Command or Control D. So File, Place, and I get the violin and the bow. I hit Open, and I'm going to pop it in there. Oh, where is it? Well, it's really large. Now, I'm going to hit Control Z or Command Z for a minute. If you know roughly how big something is going to be, you can, when you go to File, Place and the cursor is loaded, you can click and drag a box instead of just clicking. And that way you get a lot more control over the size of the thing. That's a nice tip. Again, I'm going to resize this. I got to put it in position. I do want this centered to the layout, more or less. I can center it using the alignment tool. But before I do, I'm going to hold down Shift and Command or Shift and Control, click and drag and make it the size that it needs to be. So it needs to be quite a bit smaller than what I was. And just about real similar to what you have below. Now, to center this, you can use what's called the Align panel. And I want to center this to the page. So I go to Window, and I don't see a line here. In Illustrator, we see a line, but I don't see it here. This is under Object and Layout, and then we have the Align panel that will pop up. We do want this to center to the page. So where it says Align To, we want to choose Align to the Page. And then we just click on the center button for alignment, and it will align it perfectly centered to the page. So I do that a lot. Anything that's centered to the page, I use the Align panel, and it just makes it so much easier. I don't have to measure or anything. It's just fabulous. Now we're also going to have a couple of little lines that go to the left and the right of the violin. So it's likely they're going to align to and snap to this pink line right here. So I'm going to actually go to the margin line and start there. So I hold down the shift key as I'm drawing and I drag and make it as long as the one below it. And it should be, again, a 0.5, half a point rule. Now I'll grab that one, hold down the Alt or Option key and the Shift key and drag it to the other side so it aligns up more or less to the one below it. I'm going to turn off on my layers, layer 2. Oops, something happened. I must not have held down the Alt or Option. That was what it was. Let's get that back over here. Now I'm going to turn off layer 2, hit the W key so I can see what I've got. I may nudge the violin up a little bit. I don't know. Let's see the original. Let's hit the W key. Looks like the lines were lined up to pretty much the center of the violin. So I do think I'll just have that same kind of thing going on where the lines more or less line up to the center of the violin. Close enough, right? And save. Now I'm looking to see if there's anything I missed. I always kind of like to double check my work. So I'm going to just kind of review, I'll turn on the layer 2. It doesn't have to line perfectly. We're looking for really close though. I've got all my strokes, got everything all together. There's nothing I'm seeing that is out of whack. Intermission's a little scooted, but that's okay. Everything looks good. So at this point, I would save what I'm doing, turn off my layer 2, make sure it's hidden, save what I'm doing, and then you'll go through the process to turn it in. We will need to package it. We will not critique this one, so we don't have to make a JPEG or anything like that. But we need to package it. Make sure you know exactly where it's going when you package it, and we'll zip it and upload it. So we go to File and we go to Package, 4 items up from the bottom. And this is kind of like a little pre-flight. It lets us know if there are any images or fonts that are missing, image links that are messed up, that kind of thing. There would be warning symbols in this little column right here if we had problems, but we have no problems. So I'm going to hit Package. I will take this to my Viz 115 folder, assignment 5, and I will make sure the packaging folder is titled correctly, AS5, and make sure fonts is checked, link graphics is checked, update links is checked, include IDML is checked, include PDF, and make sure this is high quality. I'll package it and it'll come up with a warning that fonts are copyright protected. So I hit, yep, I'm fine. Go ahead. And it's going through and it's collecting fonts and images in the InDesign file and making what's called an IDML file. I'll close this out. And basically what I have, I should have something on my desktop. Let's close a few things out here. Or not on my desktop, in my assignment 5 folder. It'll have today's date, and which right here it is. I will right click on that. That's my package folder. And it has, as you can see, an IDML, an INDD, a PDF that it made, and fonts and links. I will right click on that and go to compress. Now, if you're on a PC, it's a little fly out menu that that allows you to compress it that way. Send to. But on a Mac, I just go to compress. Now I have the zip folder ready to go. And I am going to go to our class folder, our class assignment, switch up to student view, and I